I'm going to turn this over to Matt Crouch, and many of you may recognize that name Crouch and think, wow, OCRA is under the Lieutenant Governor, which is Suzanne Crouch. So that's what I thought of when I saw Matt's name, and I talked to Matt and I said, Matt, how long have you been at OCRA? And he said 10.5 years. So I asked him if he appointed Suzanne Crouch as Lieutenant Governor, and he said no. But they are not related. But in some of the meetings I've attended, Matt's really an expert on OCRA grants and the process. And again, fortunate to have him with us today. Then he's going to introduce Colette after he speaks. But again, their handouts are available to you. All the handouts will be on our website on Monday. So if you do have something you need more copies of, or you want to share it with other council members, you'll be able to do that. So Matt, I'm going to hand this over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. We do realize that we are your last presenters of the afternoon, so we're standing between you and this wonderful day outside or the casino that we're all sitting in right now. So we'll try to keep it short and sweet. We certainly don't want to. We appreciate the time that you are taking out of your busy schedule to come on a Saturday. My name is Matt Crouch, Deputy Director of the Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs. Like David said, I've been with the agency for 10.5 years. Started out as a community liaison covering South Central Indiana, and then I moved to a project manager for a few years, and a senior project manager, and then became deputy director this past February. Okay, perfect. So, and I'm joined by Colette Childress, one of our fabulous project managers. So first I want to start off by thanking the AIC for having us here today. Appreciate the opportunity, and again, appreciate each and every one of you coming here today. So hands in the room, who's heard of OCRA? Who's knowledgeable about OCRA? So most of you probably have seen a lot of this information. We're going to give a brief overview of our programming, including why we do what we do, why we're here to serve you, and then we'll wrap it up with kind of how can you be a better consumer of our programs, of the funding resources that we have, and then a better consumer of consultants that will help you achieve that. So, our vision is really working with communities, and don't get caught up on the rural affairs. We also work in larger communities as well. Some of our programs are certainly tied into working with, the Evansvilles, the Fort Waynes, the Indianapolises as well. But we're really there to help communities build and prosper. So our mission is basically down to two different really points that I want to stress. Is first the resources, the grants, but also the technical assistance. So we're out working with communities, helping them plan, helping you identify exactly what it is, where do you want to go, and how can you get there, which is really hard in today's age, knowing as many priorities as you have each and every day to decide which one should be the top priority and how do we move that forward. So we're doing that through our community liaisons, which are our field staff out there working with you hand in hand. We're also doing it through our project managers, which are in our central office. They're the ones that are the experts on the state programs. They're also the ones that are seeing it from a statewide view and trying to figure out exactly what it is that OCRA should be doing out there to help communities move forward and ultimately achieve whatever that vision is for economic and community development. So kind of our impact through the state is, in 2015, we assisted 124 communities throughout the state, given the $27 million of investment back into your communities, and that can be anything, and we'll go through the different programs from a wastewater system to a park and everything in between. So as you can see, we've been around since 2005. We're part of Lieutenant Governor's family of business, one of her agencies that work together with the Indiana Office of Tourism Development, Indiana State Department of Agriculture, Indiana Office of Defense Development, Indiana Housing Community Development Authority. And so since 2005, we've secured more than $820 million that we've then immediately sent that back out into the communities that we service. So kind of why do we do what we do? Why are we here to help you? And so, we've been in the process of preparing for these listening sessions, and We have a brand new executive director that just came on. She finished her second week, Jody Golden. She was previously in charge of the 529 system with the state, and was most recently with Illinois in charge of their capital development fund. And so she's coming on board at a great time with a new administration. We're coming up with this new visioning. And so one of the things that we're trying to find is our place out there serving you and helping you move forward. And so one of the things that I keep on hearing as we try to decide what is our next focus, what is OCRA, what should we be doing for the next 3 or 4 years, is really focusing on the population decline that we have. And so we thankfully David's been a part of this group that we had together, and we've been meeting with economists and other leaders. And the purpose of this is really to focus in on how do we attract more people to Indiana, because I'm sure you hear it every time we come up with the new campaign slogans, is that we need more jobs in Indiana, when in fact we don't need more jobs. We have plenty of jobs that are available. The fact is we heard from one of our key groups down in the Evansville region alone, there's 8,000 jobs that they can't hire someone to take. So we have great organizations. Our LEDOs are doing a great job. Our REDOs are doing a great job. IEDC is doing a great job of attracting jobs, but we don't have the population to really meet those needs. And so how do we do that? And that's really what OCRA is focused on, and some of our programs are already doing that, and we're really trying to take that to the next level, is how do we attract those to move their families to Indiana, set up roots, and become a part of our communities. And that's really what we're focused in on doing, and we really want to work with you on that. So, when we're trying to help communities plan, one of the things that we're stressing, and we've been stressing for the last 1.5 years, is really the importance of, as you develop what plans that you want to move forward, what projects that you're including, there needs to be some kind of metrics that help you identify whether or not it should be project A, B, C, D, all the way to Z. And then how do you determine whether or not that project was successful at the end of the day? And so we came up with what we call our community vitality indicators, and they're just 5 indicators. There's plenty of other metrics you can select, but the thing that we want to stress is the importance of coming up with some kind of metrics as you plan as a community. And so we're looking at assessed valuation. So how much are you bringing in every year based on the property values of your community? Looking at that per capita income. So how much money are your residents bringing home each and every day, each and every week from their jobs? Population growth, just like I said, we have more than 50 counties around the state of Indiana that are in some sort of population decline, which is a scary thought, knowing that there's only 92 and that we have more than half in this decline. So we need to make sure that we track what is our population, how's it going? Then the educational attainment rate. So this is really making sure that are the residents that we're educating in our communities, are they developing the same kind of skills that they need to serve the kind of companies that we have in our communities? And then the last one, that public school enrollment, because as you well know, is that when people are trying to go and decide where do they want to go and live, one of the first things they look at is, if it's have young children, is what does that school look like? What kind of programs do they have? Are they being successful? So if you can see that is declining, that the programs that are being provided at that school system are not meeting the needs of those communities. So I say all of those things to kind of lead you to, these are the things that we're looking at. We're talking about the planning process. We're talking about that quality of place. So we're having these OCRA listening sessions. And this is where I can't stress enough. If you have an opportunity to come out and give us 2 hours of your time, we would greatly appreciate it, because we are looking at what are the issues that you're facing and how can we as an agency work with our staff, our programs, the funding that we have, the partners that we have around the state, and philanthropic, to other state agencies, to federal agencies, to private companies. How can we leverage all of this for the next 3 to 4 years to make an impact in your communities? And so if you have time from 5 to 7 in one of these locations, we would love to see you there. And this is just a chance for us to hear from you. You're not going to hear another speech from OCRA. You're going to have an opportunity to say, this is what in my community that I am facing, and these are the needs that I have, and so that we can take this back, and after we finish this 13 session listening tour, and we meet again with the group that David is a part of. We're going to come up with a new vision for OCRA. And so I can't stress enough how important it would be if you can give those 2 hours to us and help us with that so that we can better serve you. So some of the programs that we currently have that are already working on some of these issues that I talked about is our Hometown Collaboration Initiative. So I'm sure that some of you, your counties have been a part of that, and so this is a partnership that we have with with Ball State Universities, Indiana Communities Institute, and Purdue University's Purdue Center for Rural Development. And so what we do with this program is that we really are trying to set up that next set of leadership, and it's really about getting the community involved so that you hear your residents, what are their needs, how can they be involved. And so it's all setting up around one of our 3 pillars. And so you get a site coach, an expert that can walk you through this process and help build up that capacity at the local level, and then ultimately look at either leadership, economy, or quality of place initiatives and try to help you identify what it is that your community can be doing better to thrive in one of those areas. So another program that we have is our Community Readiness Initiative, which is another partnership that we have with Ball State's Indiana Communities Institute and Community and Business for Economic Research, so cyber. And so this is another capacity building. And so this program is really important in terms of assessing what the local leaders in your community know about the economic possibilities in your community, and ultimately, how knowledgeable are you of the current plans that you have that you're working through. So, there's a survey part to it, so you have questions of what do those local leaders know, and then at the end you have a meeting together. And so it's some of the communities that have been through this include the town of Nashville, the city of Huntingburg. And so some of the things that have came away is that they've been focusing on what has not been the greatest opportunity for them. And as you well know, with the limited resources that you have, the last thing you can do is place those in something that is not going to be successful. And so with Nashville, the example that I have from them is that, when you think about Nashville, for those that are near there or those that serve Brown County, that, where do you think that the greatest area for success would lie is, in coming and touring the downtown and shopping in the business owners, or all the natural resources from the park, right? That's where you would think they would do. But when you look at the statistics at really what is their greatest chance for economic development, it's really they should be focusing on their housing, because their housing stock isn't growing. The town as an epicenter for the community isn't growing in terms of the housing stock. A lot of it is older. And so when you really look at what they should be trying to attract, and this is where the town is kind of going now, is looking at, okay, we're right between Bloomington, we're right between Columbus, we're not that far from Franklin, we're not really that far from Indianapolis. And so this is really where they're trying to focus in on, is that housing stock. And so the Community Readiness Initiative can help you identify what it is that you should be focusing on. So another program that we have is our Indiana Main Street program. And this is if you're really looking for the best program to focus on downtown revitalization. And when you think about your downtown, that is your heart of your community. As you well know, and you've seen it around the communities that you serve, that are in your counties or the counties nearby you, those that lose their downtowns, that is their heart. And all that commerce leaves with them. You see that residents, when they're looking to locate or they're wanting to stay, they're wanting a reason to shop downtown. And so the Indiana Main Street program is really following that 4-point approach and really helping communities not only enhance their downtowns, but identify new markets that are available, try to get new businesses to locate there, making sure that there's sustainable, or it's a sustainable organization that helps the community identify ways to improve their downtown and have people want to go down there and use it as the downtown as a commerce center. So if you're looking at the Indiana Main Street program, and there's so many programs, and I'm sure your time is to the max, where you're giving every single free moment away, is that when you're looking at a program and an opportunity to give your time to an organization that is making a difference, this is the kind of volunteer organization that you should be looking at. Is that because in 2016 alone, the Indiana Main Streets from around the state of Indiana, which is 125 of them throughout the state, have been able to 2009 new jobs added, over $200 million of private investment in those downtowns, but most importantly, that almost 160,000 volunteer hours. So if you're looking at an organization that can move mountains, this is the Indiana Main Street program that is really focused in on that heart of the communities to make sure that it is a thriving place to live and work and visit. So another program that we have is our Stellar Communities Designation Program. So this is a partnership program that we have with 9 other partner agencies, including the Indiana Housing Community Development Authority, Indiana Department of Transportation, to name just a few of them. And so this program is really about planning and visioning together and really working together to identify what are those key partners that should be at the table, whether that's your economic development, your community foundation, your Main Street, your chamber, the county, the town, the city, whatever. Everybody should be working together and identifying a single plan. But it's really about fostering that regional involvement and investment, improving that quality of life to make sure that ultimately the growth is sustainable and you're meeting the needs of your region. So the last program I'm going to talk about is our Indiana Site Certified program, and this is identifying different plots of land that can be used for industrial or commercial development. So the importance about this program, which is a partnership with OCRA and the IEDC, is that it's really about mitigating the risk to anyone that is thinking of moving or relocating to your communities or expanding in your communities. But it's a marketing tool to help make sure that site selectors and other businesses know that if they can target and utilize your workforce that you have available, that you now have land that is available to them. So I'm going to turn it over to Colette Childress to talk about our place-based investment program. She's going to talk about all of our quality of place programming and our grants to give you a better idea of some of the resources that we have available to help you make your communities more attractive to new residents and those that are still there.
Hi everybody, thank you for your patience during the transition. I don't know who said hello, but I think we're best friends now. Okay, so I don't stand still well, so I'm going to move a little bit. I hope that's okay with you guys. Okay, how many of you guys have received a grant from OCRA in your community? Okay, not bad. How many of you guys want to receive a grant from OCRA in your community? Okay. How many of you guys are wearing a fitness tracker and sat all day and need to get a few steps? Anybody? Okay. All right. Everybody that's here, I'm going to go over a couple of the grants that we have. Matt's gone over several of our programs. We're more than the funding sources, as Matt talked about. We are kind of the experts in the field. We're also facilitators. We're conveners. I like to say we're the guy. My husband always says, hold on, I got a guy for that. I'm like, that is great. I don't know what it is we need fixed, but there's always somebody that can fix it. So when people need to get in touch with someone, when someone needs to call someone, when someone needs someone to come in and help with something, OCRA tends to be that person. So if you can't figure out who to call for something, most people call OCRA, and we're okay with that, and we can try and help you get to that. But importantly, we're going to talk about, or I'm going to talk about some of the grants that we offer. So everything from placemaking. How many of you guys have heard of placemaking? How many of you guys honestly think it's a buzzword and it's probably going to go away in the near future? Okay, I'm here to tell you hopefully that it is not. According to the National Association of Realtors, the place is more important than the product. Data has shown that. So when you're looking at your main streets, you're looking at something that is an investment in the future of you, your community, and anyone who's going to be there in the future. Dollar for dollar and pound for pound, there's nothing so far that's turned over a better investment in your community than actually your main streets. And it's coming up quickly behind that is your placemaking kind of products. So the reason I tell you that is one of the first grants we offer is our place-based investment fund. This is a partnership with the Indiana Office of Tourism Development. So what we want to see is we want to see how you're using this grant to drive tourism into your community. Okay, we've seen everything from nature playscapes to amphitheaters to piers that communities have come in and they've worked with their local high school students to create this pier. It's now event space. People can fish on it. Somebody's made a pop-up business renting fishing poles. They actually just found a way to tie in that. The reason it's a partnership with tourism is not only because tourism is an important part of driving people to your community, is that we ask you to be a partner with at least one other entity within your community, be it your community foundation, your local schools, your LEDOs, which would be you guys, not LEDOs, LUGs, your Lidos, we know who you guys are, I'm having a moment apparently, and your Main Street organizations, okay? So you guys, we want to see partner with someone else to create a better, stronger product. We know that not only does it take that partner to come in and apply for the grant, but you guys need help when it comes to someone else helping with some of the work, someone else helping with some of the responsibility, and that partner can sometimes help kind of sustain that product in the long run. So again, you're going to see, not pictures, I'm sorry, I know pictures are way more fun. I'm going to talk about the mission of the grant. We talk about the mission of OCRA, just like we talk about the mission of the grant. Here in a little bit, we're going to talk about how to submit a competitive or more likely to be funded project. And the reason we put what the mission of or purpose of the grant is, so you know if your grant is going to align with what this grant is. Okay, so if you've got a project you really want to see funded, but it doesn't quite meet the purpose of the grant, it may not be the most competitive. Okay, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Our Quick Impact Grant, or QUIP, as everybody knows, governments love acronyms, right? So this is our QUIP, which we think is kind of fun and a play on words. This is a temporary solution to what you hope to be a long-term solution. So let's say you've got a vacant property somewhere and you think that it would be a really, really good spot for a park. You can run out to Menards, use some money to buy that green AstroTurf, buy some of the equipment you think you would put on a park, sit it in that vacant spot, leave it there for 6 months, and actually see if people are going to come and use it. Okay, these are fun, these are quick, and these are short term. Short term is anywhere from 6 months to 6 years. But what it is it's designed to see if something like that is going to be sustainable in your community. If you guys look up quick impact placemaking or creative placemaking, you will be on the internet for like 6 hours. You may or may not randomly learn how to talk to giraffes, because that was something that popped up for me. But you'll learn so much really fun stuff. And it's these kind of fun projects that you never really thought were going to be part of what you do. But it's a good break, and it's a good way to kind of engage your community. We do planning grants and development. One question that every one of our grants asks is what kind of planning has been done. If we're going to ask a question like that, we stand behind it and say we offer planning grants, okay? The other one is our comprehensive site redevelopment program. This addresses blight in your community, okay? That's something we hear time and time again is a problem, is an issue, whatever word you want to use, problem, issue there, within communities. So we want to find a way to help you address that. And both of those fall under our CDBG programs. Our public facilities, drinking and wastewater. We recently just announced just under $11 million towards public facilities, MSRP, and a couple of things we're talking about here. These are for libraries, museums, community centers, performance spaces. They're also going to be where you find your fire response, things like that, facilities. Our Downtown Enhancement Grant is another one of our state placemaking kind of programs, but these are exclusively for our main streets. So another incentive if you're not a main street, or you're not already talking to your main street coordinator, director, or the person in charge of your local main street, this grant is only for main streets. The project has to be within your defined downtown area as established by your main street. And it is there to enhance an economic impact within your downtown. We've seen facade loans come out of our Downtown Enhancement Grant. We've seen facade renovations, signs, a lot of communities, awnings. The signs and awnings are missing from a lot of buildings and people don't know all the businesses that are down there. We've seen a lot of interesting things come out of our Downtown Enhancement Grant. Main Street Revitalization. This is one of our CDBG programs. This is a up to $500,000 grant. That woke some people up. And it's going to encourage communities to focus on that long-term community development. But if you look at the last few words on there, leveraging local investment, job creation, and entrepreneurship, all of that can come through your MSRP. Our Historic Renovation Grant Program, as with our place-based investment that I first talked about, are both open right now. So if you think you have a project, I strongly encourage you to talk to us and definitely reach out to your community liaisons, and I'll explain them here in just a little bit. But our Historic Renovation Grant Program was a former historic tax credit. If you are already in queue for the tax credit, we promise you're still going to get it, but this is no longer, you don't apply for a tax credit, it's actually a grant. So this grant is used to secure historic buildings within your community. So the lead applicant, this is where this gets a little different. and it's very different for OCRA. If you can see up here the one group or entity that's missing on there, it's us, it's you guys. The government entities and municipalities are not on this list. These belong to your property owners within your community. Okay, so it's your individuals, your partnerships, your firms, and your associations. You guys can see the whole list on there. But the historic property has to be used in the production of trade or income, and it needs to fall either within a non-entitlement community anywhere. If you guys don't know entitlement versus non-entitlement, we'll be happy to explain that to you, or introduce you to your CL via picture here in a minute, and they can explain more to you. Or within a designated Main Street area. So again, another reason to be reaching out to your Main Street. So the historic property itself, it needs to be 50 years old. It actually needs to be on the National Register. Right now we're in the LOI phase. That LOI is due on Friday. So you would want to go to Shard, which is a website within DNR, and find out if that property is eligible. We've been reaching out to communities across the state in the past year talking about this program. So lots of people are familiar with this, but again, if you want more, I'll be happy to share. And then it needs to be listed, or it can be listed as a contributing resource in the National Register District. This gets really, really confusing, and I'll be the first to admit that, but we have somebody on staff who speaks this language so well. She's absolutely phenomenal. Her name is Mary Shaw, and I'll have a picture of her up here too, and she can walk you guys through this as you have property owners who you think might be interested. Contact them, let them know, and have them call us, or you can be the bridge between and call us and find out more information. We did get a question recently, was what if you have a job as a local unit of government of some kind, but you also have a property? You can't apply for the property. So the historic property, it has to be actively used for the production of trade or income, held for rental or other use in ordinary course of the person's trade or business, follow the Secretary of Interior standards. Now, if you're running like the LuLaRoe new clothing hype out of your house, that doesn't count. If you're doing tarot readings, or you sell something, or you're a podcast broadcaster, why I can't think of the word, those actually don't count. It needs to be a facility that's used for income. Okay, so some eligible activities. Your roof, your windows, facades, securing your structure, so your foundation, tuck pointing, and things like that. This is exterior work only and not interior work. Okay, so I'm going to skip the Q&A for now, and we'll grab that at the very end. So as you can see here, we are like the happiest bunch of government people you're ever going to meet. And a fun fact, we took this picture on a Monday. We also do not drink at work, I promise. We were just as happy. Okay, for whatever reason, my executive director's picture doesn't come up. I feel like if you were going to mess something up, that's probably not the good one, but she is fantastic. So as you can see, we have Jody. Under Jody's going to be Matt. We have our amazing office staff here, our operations director, Megan, and our state CDBG director, Aletha Dunstan. And then here on the left, we have myself, Mary, and Christmas, and we're kind of that indie state high-level view that Matt was talking about. Our admin assistant, Corey, if you've ever called OCRA, his main number, you probably got Corey. She is absolutely fantastic. We also have our community liaisons who live and work in the field. They are personally invested not only in their job, but in their own personal life in their communities, okay? We have the map here. There's a better map on our website that's easier to read. And if you have not met your community liaison yet, they come out to you. They will come to you and meet you. They will talk to you about any of these grants we just talked about here. All of these pictures, contact information, and everything is on our website. So if you cannot remember who that girl was that stood up there and wasted your Saturday for a little bit, you can find my picture and click on it and get a hold of somebody. If you can't get a hold of one of your community liaisons, you're welcome to call Christmas, myself. Honestly, it is not a joke if anyone just caught that. We have Mary, Christmas, Colette as our project development team. Is that not awesome? You can call any of us. I was really happy when Matt hired Christmas because it was like perfect. So you can get a hold of anyone here. How many of you guys have met your community liaisons? Yes. Okay, good. I highly, highly recommend those of you who have not reached out to them to reach out to them. They are a wealth of knowledge, not only with OCRA, but what other resources are available and what other communities around you might be struggling with something that you guys can partner well together on. All right, so I'm going to give you some advice for securing that grant. If you yourself do not write the grants, but you tend to sign a letter of support for a grant, or you sign a letter agreeing to hire a grant administrator, we want you to be a better consumer of those grant administrators or of those kind of resources. So knowing what we are looking for in a grant is always a good thing to have up your sleeve. I like to tell people that for any of our state programs, if you can send me an email and explain your project, you can probably write our grants. Okay, and that's for our state programs. Our CDBG ones are much more in depth, and in that case, we do highly recommend you work with someone. So the first thing is to know your audience. I mentioned before, knowing the purpose of the grant and knowing the purpose of the agency that you're working with, that doesn't just apply to OCRA, that applies to any organization. If you wanted to build a park, you are probably not going to call the fire department and ask for money, okay? But if you look for a park and all of a sudden you look through what OCRA does and you find something that's in line, we might be the right person to call. So you want to make sure you know what you're writing about. We actually have people who will write to us and talk to us about, let's say use a phrase like, we're not real sure why money's going to rural Indiana. Maybe that's not the best thing to put into an application to somebody whose focus is rural Indiana. So again, make sure you know your audience and you know what you're writing to. Be clear and concise. As some of you may be able to tell, I don't mind talking at all. So when I start to write something, I have to go back through and see if I was overly wordy, if I'd really tried to explain this big flowery thing when I could have easily said, I would like to build a park, my community said they want it. Some reason I might have written a paragraph when that one statement would have worked. It's okay to be clear and concise. It is not an essay contest, as Matt likes to say, and I think that explains it well. Be honest. Nothing is more frustrating to the state and nothing hurts your chances of getting another grant than selling us on this amazing project. And when we come out and do a site visit, we find out that you might have exaggerated a little bit on what this project was. Be honest about what it is. Here in a minute, we're going to talk about what happens if something happens and you get behind schedule. Be honest with us. We are all people too. We understand that hiccups happen. We understand bids change. A couple of years ago when people were securing concrete bids as part of their grants, and everyone knows what happens to the cost of concrete, we had people who kind of just didn't want to call us, but they were a lot of money behind and they were trying to figure out how to raise the money. While we can't give you more money, we might be able to work through some other things with you or figure out how we can consolidate other portions of the grant. So be honest with us, talk to us, and especially when you're writing your application, be honest in there and tell us, if you think there might be a hiccup, but here's how you're going to overcome it. We respect honesty. So when you're writing the grant, there is a very big difference when someone asks you to fill out a partner letter and someone asks you to fill out a letter of support. A letter of support is simply saying, I think this is a great idea, I'm all for it. A partner letter puts you on the hook for it. Okay, so you're agreeing to be part of it, whether it's just your expert opinion, whether it's financially, but being a support and being a partner are two very different things. So always make sure that you're fully aware when you're signing those documents, which one you're actually committing to. There are also very different documents as part of the grant. So you want to make sure that you're writing the right one or you're filling out the correct one. Fun fact, we actually put partner letter or support letter on top of those, so you can take a look at that and see exactly what you're signing. Eligible versus competitive. You can check every box that we say is eligible and still fall fairly low when it comes to fundability. And that's because if you're not clear and concise, or you're not actually, putting in your budget actually accurately, or the project itself isn't really within the mission, then you're no longer competitive, okay? So we lose a lot of projects because maybe they didn't read everything correctly. They didn't take a minute and figure out if what they were trying to write made sense. That's where your eligibility kind of falls into place. Federal versus state. This is important to know when you're working on a grant because there are a lot of differences when it comes to federal dollars and state dollars. State dollars tend to be much more unencumbered than federal dollars, as I'm sure you guys all know. It's also very different in the application. Our QUIP application is a 5-page max, and it's got 7 different questions. So what kind of time-intensive application that is very, very different than one that requires a public forum. So when you're looking at a grant and you're meeting with your CL or you've called Matt or I and you're asking questions, Ask as if it's a state or federal program if you don't see it right away. And then is there community involvement? Every community has cave people or citizens against virtually everything. Every community has somebody that doesn't want a great project to move forward. We know that, okay? But we also know there are a lot that stand behind you that you may not know about. Facebook is one of the best inventions and the scariest things ever made at the same time. If you drive by a vacant spot, let's just keep using that vacant lot, not that everybody has one, and say you take a picture and you post it on Facebook and you say, what would you like this to be? Just leave it out there and see what happens. What happens if 50 people come back and tell you, we really, really, really wish this was an ice cream shop? Who knows who's out there reading, saying, oh, I've always wanted to open an ice cream shop, but I never knew that there was a market. There are 300 people who just responded to this saying, I want ice cream. I've got clientele. Those kind of things are good. Let's say they wanted a park. We've got our place-based investment fund or a QIP out for a park. You can say, we asked the question, here's the outpouring we had of community support. Placemaking is actually one of the most community-driven initiatives out there right now because you want the community to engage in it, so you kind of want to get their feedback on it. Your budgets. This is going to sound crazy, but I do have to say all of these things. You have to make sure that all the numbers are accounted for. When we talk about eligible versus competitive, you can check every single box, but if you start explaining a park to us, and by the time we get to the budget, it has nothing to do with the park, and all of a sudden we're seeing like canoe ramps and all these things that haven't been explained. Things don't tie together, we're not sure what the project is, so you become much less competitive. You need to make sure that all your numbers add up. This is one of the most common mistakes we see on any grant we receive. We ask for numbers 3 times in an application typically. On the cover page, that's the first place people usually mess up. I don't know how it happens, and I think human error is one. Make sure that you're looking at that. The other one is within your budget. Make sure that those all add up. And then lastly is when you're explaining what your costs are going into, you want to make sure those are there. We do check those. We actually, inevitably, when we're looking at grants, have someone out with a calculator making sure all the numbers are adding up. What is included in the grant is or in the budget is what the grant is for. You can paint a beautiful picture and we can be all about what you guys are writing about. And then when we see the money that you're requesting in the budget, if you tell us $50,000 is for a parking lot, that's what you're asking for money for, okay? So when you're actually filling out your budget, make sure your budget is telling the same story, that if anybody picked up that budget, they can paint a pretty good picture of what exactly the project is you're looking at. And then you want to make sure that the partner letters are included and signed. It does look a little suspect when you tell me that you've got, your council on board and they're going to give you some money, but nobody signed that piece of paper. So we like to make sure that it's signed so we know people are actually committed as a full partner. Now, I am an optimist. So once you guys have listened to all of this advice and you guys are awarded a grant with OCRA, there's a couple things you want to do. The state has moved to online payments. So when you get paid, we don't cut checks anymore. You actually have, and the grant process isn't an actual grant agreement anymore. What comes to you now is you go online and you electronically fill out as a bidder. Adam Moschel is with Grant Services. He is absolutely fantastic with helping people fill out those online budget forms. But you actually do what's called now is you register as a bidder. So it's a whole different process than if you received a grant 2 years ago. But it also moves quicker. You don't wait 6 weeks for a fully executed grant now. 5 days is what it takes for some of these. 5 days to be able to start requesting your money. Whether or not you hire a grant administrator is up to you guys individually with your roles. If it is a federal grant that you are awarded, you are obligated to work with a grant administrator. At OCRA, we certify grant administrators. You can go on our website and find a list of certified grant administrators, but we cannot recommend one over another to you. So we can just kind of give you that list and teach you how to be a good consumer. And then when to start. Depending on if it's state or federal, you actually can't start the minute you find out you got that grant. There's a delay in that, or you could actually risk losing money. So you want to make sure once you've been awarded that you know when can you actually start. And some of that start even involves calling the contractor and saying, we're ready, let's go ahead and break ground. That phone call could actually cause you a little bit of a hiccup. So once you've been awarded, you always want to ask, is it state or federal? Also, which hopefully you know by that point, but also when can you start. Know when to be finished. All of your grant agreements clearly state when you're supposed to be finished. And they also state what the obligations are throughout the course of that grant, which usually requires some kind of documentation of updates of telling us where you are. They're just simple questions, and they're really easy to fill out. But usually with state, it's 18 months. You have 18 months from the time you start a project until the time it's done, and that's usually plenty of time. But what happens if something happens? As I said before, we are all humans and we totally understand. Call us and tell us, I'm running behind schedule. It rained for like 91 days, I think, like it did last year or the year before. Those things happen, and trust me, when your project gets pushed behind, there's probably a whole ton pushed behind yours. So everybody got pushed behind. We had only a few phone calls telling us that people were behind schedule. We got proactive, started calling around and asking people, and people were telling us, okay, we're behind schedule. That's totally fine. We can issue a modification to give you that extension if it's within reason. We also understand elections happen. We understand budgets happen. We understand those kind of things happen. Calling us and telling us up front and asking us to work with you, we will be honest with you, and we will work with you. We like to definitely say, not right now, or here's how we can help. But just like we'll be honest with you, we do hope you'll be honest with us. So, with that being said, I'm fully aware I speak very quickly. But those community liaisons that we showed you the picture of, highly recommend next week sometime you pick up the phone and schedule an appointment with them. Again, I don't know many people who actually will do a house call now, not really your house, they'll come to you somewhere, and meet with you and talk to you about these programs and kind of where you're at, what you're looking to do or move forward, and help you figure out which works best. So, is anybody going to be the person who has questions right before you get dismissed? No judgment if you are. I'm okay with it. Yes, ma'am.
Is any government entity allowed to apply? You said no government entities or?
Only for our historic renovation. Every other government entity is welcome to apply for any other grant.
Okay, we have a town swimming pool that's not usable, it's 60 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gonna cost $1 million or something like that. So what, who should they go for? Is there anybody that can help them?
So swimming pools and splash pads and public Wi-Fi tend to be removed from what we can offer, but we have a partner with IHCDA, which is Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority, and they actually have a Creating Places crowdfunding grant opportunity. And swimming pools tend to get parents who are willing to donate money because a swimming pool is something that kids can utilize and parents find value in. So it's actually a good way to crowdfund towards raising money towards swimming pools. But right now, that's not something that OCRA has any funding for. Sorry. But if you come to our listening session, you can tell us that's something you need money for.
Maybe that's a small town, 2,500 population. And that's the only thing that kids in town, go to. And of course, it is a place of employment.
Mm-hmm. So are you going to come talk to us at our listening session and tell us you need money for this? I have no problem shamelessly plugging this listening session. Also, you don't have to hear a single OCRA person talk other than welcome, and we sit back and listen. That's it. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you guys so much.